Hi, this is Liji and today let us see some special functions in Python. And let us start with the anonymous function or the inline function or the lambda function or the nameless function. So these are few names that are associated with this function. So it is a function that is defined in a single line. This function doesn't have a name and it is usually used within another function. So how we define an inline function in Python? So we have the keyword lambda over here. It identifies it as an inline function or a single line function. Then we have the input. Then there is a colon followed by the expression which evaluates and gives the output. So the input can be any number of parameters separated by commas. There is no limit to the number of parameters that we can pass. And the expression, whatever is over here, it evaluates. Evaluates the expression, and it whatever the expression returned is considered as the output from the lambda function. So let us see an example over here. Here there is a lambda function over here, lambda x, and the expression is x into x. So whatever input we are passing over here, it is doubling it basically. That is what this lambda function is doing. So whenever we create a lambda function, it is created as an object. Okay. So since we need to use this lambda function, I am just assigning it a name. So square will be having the object for to this lambda function. So when I use square, give square of 2, I'll get the square of 2, that is 4. Basically, it is defined in a single line. The entire function is defined in a single line. We are not going with the def keyword over here where how we usually define the normal function. We are not doing that. Here we are defining it in a single line. Okay, so whenever you want a concise code, we can go with this lambda function. And this lambda function is basically used with other functions in Python. Let us see those. So first one is map. So what does the map function does? It basically applies a function to each item of a sequence. So if we have a sequence and if we want to apply a function to each of the item in the sequence, we can go with this map function. The syntax of map function is map followed by a function name and then a sequence. Let us see this with an example. So here we have a list 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you want to square each element in the list, what we does, well, we'll have a list, empty list. Then we'll iterate through each of the element in the list. Then we'll square it and then append it to the list. This is how the usual procedure that we'll be following, right? So here we got the output. Okay. Now, if we are using, here we saw the lambda function over here, which is taking an input and squaring it. Okay, we know the lambda function and we have given it a name. Okay, so instead of doing like this script, what we can do is we can call this lambda function over here. See, it gives the same output. So here we are having the lambda function, and what was this lambda function square? So the lambda function square is lambda. So just take the input and the output will be x into x. So this is what we want over here, right? So whatever element, so what happens is we have a list L over here. So each of this element, each of the item in this L, each of the element in this cell will be passed to this lambda function and it will be squared. And that is what we get over here. See, 1, 4, 9, 6. So this function is applied to each element in the sequence. That is basically what happens. And even the map function returns a map object. Okay, so if you want to see what exactly it is, we have to convert it into a list or another sequence, or we have to iterate through it. Okay, and it is not necessary that in map we have to use a lambda function. We can go for a built-in function also. So here what I'm doing is I'm trying to find the square root of each element in the list that we saw there. So here we got it. Okay, so otherwise if you don't use this map function, Okay, here what we are doing, we are calling the math dot square root function. Okay, and we are just giving that function over here, and we are giving the list over here. If you don't use this map function, then we'll have to separately iterate to each elements in the list, then find the square root, then form a new list based on that, right? So this is how map makes the work easier for us. Okay, and again, it is not necessary that it has to be a user means building function or a lambda function. We can go with a normal function also in case of map. So here I have defined a function cubed. So what it is taking is, it is taking an integer and it is firing the cube of it and it is returning it. So here here what I am doing is, I am using this cube function for the list. So this cube is applied to each element in the list, and it will return as the cube for each elements in the list, right? So when I execute this, see, I got a cube for each elements in the list. So that is how map works. So we will see another example. So we have a list over here, days, and suppose we want to find the shorthand of each of the elements, each of the days in this days. Okay, so shorthand like sun for Sunday, mon for Monday. Basically, if we want to get the shorthand, a list with shorthand of all these days, that is the first three letters in the days. So here I am having a lambda function which takes an input and it returns the first three characters in the input. Okay, and I am applying this map function to the days list over here. So this is how we got the output. So map basically applies a function to each and every element in a sequence. Now let us see another function, that is filter. So here we have a list over here, a random list, a list followed by using random numbers. Now suppose if we want to find a list, get a list out of it with only the even numbers in it. We have to filter out the even numbers from the list. So this is the usual script that we'll be writing, right? So you will be checking for the each of the numbers. We'll divide it by 2. We'll check whether the remainder is 0, and based on that we'll form the new list, right? So here we got a new list. Instead of that, what we can do is, we can use the filter function over here. So in the filter function also, the syntax remains the same. It takes a function and the list, and here what is happening, lambda, it is taken an input, and what it is doing, it is find the output expression is, we are finding the remainder is equal to 0. Okay, and then we are giving the list. So we got the same numbers. Okay, again, the output is an object of filter function. So what we have to do is, we have to iterate it, or we have to convert it into other sequence to see the output properly. So what basically the filter function does, filters elements from the given sequence based on a condition. Okay, the function inside the filter, it should be returning true or false. So what it does, all the elements which returns true for that particular condition, it filters out that and it gives the output. So that's what basically happens in a filter function. So if you want to do this again with a normal function, we can do that also. So here in the function, we are taking the number, then we are checking if this is equal to divided by 2. If it is divisible, we are returning true, otherwise we are divisible by 4. So we are using that function in the filter function, and then we are passing the list, we get the same output. Okay, 34, 56, 76. Here what we are doing, we are simply using the lambda function, taking the input, and this is the expression that we want it to evaluate. So filter basically filters items from a list based on a particular condition. The function that we pass in the filter function should be returning either true or false. All the elements that returns true, that will be filtered out. Now let us see another function that is known as reduce. So suppose we want to sum of a list. So this will be the usual script that we'll be doing. We'll be iterating through the list, then we'll be finding the sum of each elements, right? Instead of that, we can use the reduce function from the module functools. Okay, so what it does is, it takes there will be a function, again the syntax is reduce function and then the sequence. Okay, so based on this function, it reduces the sequence to a single element. So here what it is happening, we are having a lambda function over here. It is taking two inputs, then it is finding the sum of it. Okay, so let us see. So here when we did the iteration, found the sum, usual normal script, we got the output as 45. Here again, when we use reduce, we are getting the output as 45. So basically reduces, what the reduce function reduces a sequence to a single output. Okay. So what happens is, initially when the function is executed for the first time, it takes in two input. Okay. So the range will be having, here the sequence that is having is range of 10. So it will be having values like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, right? So what basically it does is, first it will take the initial two things, initial 0 and 1. So that is what is passed over here as the input. 0 plus 1 it does, and it gives the output. Then that output and the third element is taken, then the expression is evaluated. Then the output from that and the next element is taken, and then the expression is evaluated. So that is how the reduce function works. Okay, so when you have a sequence list over there, initially the first two elements will be taken, it will be reduced to a single output, then that output and the next element, then it boils down till the entire list is exhausted. Okay, so basically reduces a sequence to a single output, initially takes two arguments from the list, then results then after that subsequently it takes the result of the previous operation and the new operation, and it gives the output. Okay, so if you suppose if you want to find the multiplication, not the addition, sum of the elements, we want to find the product of the elements in the list, then also we can do that. See, 0, because the first element in the range of 10, the first element is 0. So 0 into 1 is 0, then 0 into 2 is 0, 0 into 3 is 0. So that's why it became 0. So if I make it 1, 10, then we'll get the output like this. Okay. Now, the another useful function is enumerate. So we remember the days list we created earlier. What enumerate does is, it gives us the elements with their indexes. Okay, so enumerate, again if you check like this, you will be getting the enumerate object only. So but if we check out the list, so this is the, we convert it into list, and this is how we get it. Okay, so basically each element it takes and it returns the index also. So we don't have to calculate this index internally we don't have to calculate it. We can just use the enumerate function to find the indexes in our programs. So here I'm just using it in a for loop. I'm taking index and day, as you have seen, it is giving index and then followed by an item in the list. So it just I'm taking index and day in enumerate of days. So I'll be having the index in the index and each of the days in day. I'm just trying to print it. Okay, so basically enumerate function returns as the elements of a list plus the indexes. It returns as in the form of an enumerate object. It will be a list of tuples, and each tuple will be the index and an item in the sequence. So we saw four functions today. First is the lambda function. It is an inline function in Python. It takes an input separated by commas, then there is a colon, and then there is an expression over there which evaluates it and it returns the output. Okay, so the output of the program will be the expression evaluation result of this expression. This lambda function we can use with map function, filter function, reduce function, wherever we need to use an inline function or a single line function. A map basically applies a function to a sequence. So it can take in a lambda function, it can take in a normal function, it can take in a built-in function also. But each of the elements in the sequence, when if we have to apply a function over it, then we can go with the map function. Then we have the filter function. If you have to filter out the elements of a sequence based on some condition, we can use the filter function. Only condition is that the function that we are using in filter should be returning true or false. So all those elements which returns true will be filtered out. Then we have a third function over here, reduce, which reduces a sequence based on a function. How the reduction has to be happened, that we can specify as a function, and it reduces the sequence into a single element. Then we have the enumerate function, which takes in a sequence and returns each item with its index. Okay, so it returns a list of tuples where each tuple is the index plus the item. So that's all for today. Stay tuned for the next video. I'll be back with some interesting topic in Python. Thank you.